What if everything you've been taught about money, wealth, and prosperity has been one massive lie designed to keep you trapped in a cycle of financial struggle? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Think about it for a moment. Since childhood, you've been programmed with phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard for every penny, and rich people are greedy. Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself constantly chasing money, sacrificing your peace of mind, your relationships, even your health, just to make ends meet, only to discover that no matter how hard you work, there never seems to be enough. This isn't your fault. You've been living under what spiritual teacher Florence Scovel Shinn calls collective hypnotism, a mass delusion that wealth is scarce, that abundance requires extreme sacrifice, and that financial struggle is somehow noble or necessary. But what if I told you that this entire belief system goes against the very fabric of divine law? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely revolutionize your relationship with money and abundance. The truth is, you were never meant to be a beggar in life's economy. You weren't designed to be a gambler, desperately hoping for financial favor or lucky breaks. According to spiritual law, you are something far more powerful. You are a living vessel of infinite supply. This concept might sound foreign to your logical mind, especially if you're currently looking at empty bank accounts, mounting bills, or missed opportunities. Your circumstances right now might be screaming a different story. But here's what's fascinating about spiritual law. Your external world is not your source of supply. Your job, your business, your investments, even your most reliable income streams are merely channels, not the source itself. The real source of your wealth exists in an invisible realm where scarcity doesn't exist, where there are no economic downturns, no inflation, no competition for limited resources. This infinite storehouse of abundance responds to one thing and one thing only: your consciousness, your beliefs, and most importantly, the words you speak. You see, money is not actually your problem. Your relationship with money is not even your problem. The real issue lies deeper, in the fundamental misunderstanding of who you are and how spiritual law operates in the physical world. When you truly grasp that you are not separate from abundance, but are literally designed to be its expression, everything changes. This isn't positive thinking or wishful visualization. This is about understanding and applying exact spiritual laws that govern the manifestation of wealth. Just as gravity works whether you understand it or not, these prosperity principles operate with mathematical precision when properly applied. What you're about to learn has transformed countless lives, turning financial victims into masters of their own economic destiny. But it requires something most people aren't willing to do. It requires you to completely abandon the old paradigm of struggle and step into a new identity as someone who attracts wealth naturally, effortlessly, and abundantly. The question isn't whether these principles work. They've been working for thousands of years. The question is whether you're ready to break free from the hypnotic trance of limitation and claim your rightful place as a magnet for divine prosperity. Because once you understand what I'm about to share with you, your entire financial reality will shift in ways that might seem impossible right now. But here's the hidden truth behind this transformation. Your mind has been systematically programmed to operate like a sophisticated scanning device, constantly searching for what's missing, what's lacking, what's not working in your financial life. Think about your daily mental patterns for a moment. How often do your thoughts automatically drift to bills that need paying, expenses that are coming up, or that nagging worry about whether there will be enough money this month? This isn't natural behavior, it's learned programming. And the most liberating revelation is that what was programmed by fear can be completely reprogrammed by truth. Your current financial programming didn't happen overnight. It was installed through years of repetitive exposure to scarcity-based thinking. Every time you heard, "We can't afford that," every time you witnessed financial stress in your household, every time you absorbed messages about money being hard to come from movies, news, or conversations, your subconscious mind was building a complex network of beliefs about limitation. If this kind of deep spiritual wisdom around abundance speaks to your soul, I'd be honored to have you join. our community here. Subscribe because I regularly share these transformative principles that actually work in real life, and I want to make sure you don't miss any of these life-changing teachings. But here's where this journey becomes absolutely fascinating. This programming isn't permanent law. It's simply repetition that has created neural pathways in your brain. Just as water flowing down a hillside eventually carves a deep groove, your thoughts about money have carved mental grooves that automatically direct your focus toward lack rather than abundance. The transformation begins when you understand that your wealth isn't actually hiding somewhere out in the world, waiting for you to find it through perfect strategies, networking, or lucky breaks. Your wealth is waiting in the most unexpected place, in your own spoken word, in the declarations you make, in the consciousness you hold about your financial future. This revelation completely dismantles everything our culture teaches about money. We're told to chase opportunities, work harder, save more, invest smarter. But what if the real secret lies in recognizing that your bank account, your current income, your present circumstances are not revealing your potential? They're revealing what you've unconsciously declared through your beliefs and words. Your circumstances are like a mirror reflecting back your inner financial consciousness. If you're constantly speaking lack, constantly focusing on what's missing, constantly reinforcing stories of financial struggle, then that's exactly what your external world will continue to mirror back to you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what happens next changes everything. When you truly grasp that your spoken word carries creative power, when you understand that your declarations aren't just positive thinking but actual instructions to the creative forces of the universe, you begin to step into a completely different relationship with abundance. Your words become tools of creation rather than habits of limitation. This isn't about pretending your bills don't exist or ignoring financial challenges. This is about understanding that behind every financial manifestation, there's a consciousness that created it. And if consciousness created it, consciousness can absolutely transform it. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to reprogram my mind," if this is resonating with you. The moment this concept truly clicks in your consciousness, you realize you've stumbled upon something that operates with the precision of scientific law, not the randomness of wishful thinking or lucky coincidences. What we're dealing with here is a spiritual science that functions according to exact principles. And once you understand these principles, the results become as predictable as any physical law. Think about gravity for a moment. You don't need to believe in gravity for it to work. You don't need to understand the complex physics behind it. You simply know that if you drop something, it falls. This same certainty applies to the spiritual laws governing abundance. When you speak certain words with genuine faith and understanding, specific results must follow. It's not magic, it's mechanism. The fascinating revelation behind this entire process is that your financial transformation doesn't require years of struggle, complex strategies, or even significant willpower. What it requires is a fundamental shift in how you train your mind to operate. Most people approach financial change through force, pushing harder, working longer, trying to muscle their way into abundance. But this approach completely misses the hidden truth about how wealth actually manifests. Real transformation happens through what spiritual teachers call dominion, a state where your consciousness naturally aligns with abundance frequencies. Instead of fighting against lack, you simply tune into a different channel. Instead of forcing results, you learn to speak in rhythm with the natural flow of prosperity that's always moving around you. This journey of mind training dissolves poverty patterns at their very source. These patterns aren't just thoughts. They're deeply embedded neural networks that automatically trigger scarcity responses in your brain. Every time you see a bill, every time you check your bank account, every time you think about your financial future, these patterns activate and reinforce the same limiting cycles. But here's where the real breakthrough happens. When you understand that your mind can be retrained through spiritual dominion rather than mental effort, everything becomes effortless. You're not trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. You're not forcing positive thoughts over negative feelings. You're actually discovering the truth about who you are and how abundance operates through you. The most profound aspect of this entire process is that it works regardless of your current circumstances, your background, your education, or your past financial failures. These spiritual laws don't discriminate. They respond to consciousness, to faith, to the vibration of your words and beliefs. When you align with these laws, they begin working in your favor with the same reliability that water flows downhill. What makes this approach so powerful is that you're not changing external conditions first and hoping your mind will follow. You're shifting consciousness first, and then watching as your external world naturally rearranges itself to match your new internal reality. This creates lasting transformation because you're working with the creative forces of the universe rather than against them. Write in the comments, "I choose spiritual dominion," if you're feeling this shift happening within you. The deeper you dive into this understanding, the more you realize that everything you've been taught about earning wealth through struggle represents a complete misunderstanding of how abundance actually operates in the spiritual realm. Wealth isn't a reward that you receive after proving your worthiness through hardship. It's not a prize handed out to those who sacrifice the most or work the hardest. Wealth is actually a law, a divine principle that operates with the same consistency as any natural law. Consider how we interact with the law of gravity. We don't earn the right for gravity to work in our lives. We don't struggle to deserve its effects. We simply accept that it exists and operates automatically. This same principle applies to abundance. What you call money, what you see as dollars and cents in your bank account, is merely the visible expression of an invisible spiritual truth. That infinite supply flows through you when you align with its natural laws. If something shifted inside you while we were together in this teaching, if you felt that spark of recognition when these truths landed in your spirit, show me by hitting the like button. It lets me know these messages are reaching the people who need them most. This revelation completely transforms how you approach financial abundance because you're no longer trying to convince the universe that you deserve wealth. You're no longer attempting to prove your worthiness through endless effort. Instead, you're simply coming into agreement with a law that already exists, a divine structure that was established long before you were born. The law of prosperity operates on a fascinating principle that what you affirm in the spiritual realm must materialize in the physical realm. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology. This is how creative consciousness functions. When you declare wealth with genuine faith, understanding, and conviction, you're not just hoping for results. You're actually setting a vibration in motion that begins the manifestation process automatically. This behind-the-scenes process happens whether you're aware of it or not. Every declaration you make, every belief you hold, every word you speak about your financial reality is constantly creating vibrations that shape your material experiences. The challenge most people face is that they're unconsciously creating vibrations of lack through their default mental patterns, then wondering why abundance seems so elusive. The transformative moment occurs when you realize you've been working against this law rather than with it. You've been declaring scarcity through your words, your fears, your constant focus on what's missing. But the moment you shift into conscious alignment with prosperity principles, everything changes. You're no longer fighting against natural law, you're flowing with it. This spiritual mechanism operates with mathematical precision. It doesn't matter if you understand exactly how it works, just like you don't need to understand electromagnetic theory to turn on a light switch. What matters is that you learn to work with these laws rather than against them, to speak in harmony with abundance rather than in opposition to it. The most profound realization in this entire journey is that your financial transformation isn't dependent on external circumstances changing first. It's dependent on your internal alignment with laws that are always operating, always available, always waiting for your conscious participation. Write in the comments, "I align with prosperity law," if this resonates with your understanding. When you truly understand how this alignment works, you discover one of the most practical and immediately applicable principles in all of spiritual science, the law of substitution. Your mind operates like a single-channel radio that can only tune into one frequency at a time. You literally cannot think two thoughts simultaneously, which means you have incredible power over your mental state through conscious choice. This revelation changes everything about how you approach limiting thoughts and financial fears. Instead of fighting poverty consciousness, instead of trying to battle negative thoughts about money, you simply replace them. The moment a thought of lack enters your awareness, you don't engage in mental warfare with it. You don't analyze why it appeared or feel guilty for having it. You simply substitute it with a higher truth, deny the limiting appearance, and install abundant thinking in its place. This process becomes a fascinating mental discipline that transforms your entire relationship with fear and doubt. When worry about bills surfaces, you don't spiral into anxiety or try to push the thought away through willpower. You recognize it as simply old programming attempting to run its familiar pattern, and you consciously choose to substitute it with declarations of divine supply. When doubt whispers that you'll never have enough, you answer with affirmations of unlimited abundance flowing through your life. The hidden truth behind this substitution process is that your mind craves consistency above all else. It wants to run familiar patterns, whether those patterns serve you or limit you. But here's where your journey toward financial transformation becomes incredibly empowering. You get to decide which patterns become dominant through the choices you make moment by moment, thought by thought. What makes this approach so effective is understanding that there's no neutral ground in the spiritual realm. Every word you speak is literally planting seeds in the fertile soil of consciousness. Every thought you think is either growing abundance or growing limitation. This means you cannot declare prosperity in the morning, then spend your afternoon worrying about money and expect positive results. That would be like planting flowers in the morning and weeds in the afternoon, then wondering why your garden looks chaotic. This consistency requirement isn't meant to overwhelm you. It's meant to empower you. Once you realize that your words and thoughts are constantly creating your financial reality, you become incredibly selective about what you allow to take root in your consciousness. You start protecting your mental garden with the same care a farmer protects their crops. The transformation happens when you realize you've been unconsciously planting seeds of scarcity through casual conversations, worry sessions, and habitual negative thinking patterns. But the moment you become conscious of this process, you gain the power to plant only seeds that will grow into the abundant harvest you desire. Write in the comments, "I choose my thoughts consciously," if you're ready to take control of your mental garden. This conscious choice-making becomes even more powerful when you understand a fundamental spiritual principle that's been hidden in plain sight for centuries. You've probably heard the phrase, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," countless times. But the profound truth embedded in these words reveals the very nature of divine guidance and provision. If God is truly leading your life, if you're walking in alignment with divine will, then lack simply cannot follow. It's spiritually impossible. This revelation completely reframes how you interpret your current financial circumstances. If you're experiencing constant financial strain, if money feels like an endless struggle, it's not because you're cursed, unworthy, or spiritually deficient. It's not because God has forgotten about you or decided you don't deserve abundance. The real issue is that your mind hasn't been trained to expect divine supply as a natural consequence of spiritual alignment. Most people carry tremendous guilt and shame around their financial struggles, believing they're somehow being punished for past mistakes or spiritual inadequacies. But this interpretation misses the hidden truth about how spiritual laws actually operate. Your lack isn't divine punishment. It's not spiritual warfare being waged against you by dark forces. It's simply a matter of misalignment with laws that govern abundance. Think of it like trying to tune into a radio station. When you hear static instead of clear music, it doesn't mean the radio station has stopped broadcasting or that you're being punished by the radio waves. It simply means your receiver isn't properly aligned with the frequency. The music is still playing perfectly. You just need to adjust your tuning to receive it clearly. This understanding brings such relief to your spiritual journey because it removes the burden of self-blame and victim consciousness that keeps so many people trapped in financial limitation. You've unknowingly accepted the world's hypnotic programming about money requiring extreme effort, about struggle being noble, about scarcity being normal. But these beliefs aren't divine truths. They're collective illusions that have been passed down through generations. The transformation begins when you realize that your financial challenges aren't evidence. of spiritual failure, but simply indicators that your consciousness needs retuning. You're not being tested or punished. You're simply operating according to programming that doesn't align with spiritual abundance laws. Once you understand this distinction, the path forward becomes clear and compassionate rather than guilt-ridden and overwhelming. This shift in perspective changes everything about how you approach your financial transformation. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" or "What did I do wrong?" you begin asking, "How can I align my consciousness with divine supply?" Instead of fighting against circumstances, you focus on adjusting your inner frequency to match the abundance that's always broadcasting. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics of this alignment process will give you practical tools to begin shifting your financial reality immediately. Write in the comments, "I release guilt and align with abundance," if this perspective is bringing you peace. The mechanics of this alignment process work exactly like tuning a sophisticated radio receiver. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there are hundreds of radio frequencies passing through the air around you. Music, news, conversations, all broadcasting simultaneously. You can't hear them because your radio isn't tuned to their specific frequencies, but that doesn't mean they're not there. The same principle applies to wealth and abundance. There's a divine frequency of prosperity broadcasting constantly throughout the universe, carrying infinite supply, unlimited opportunities, and abundant resources. This frequency never stops transmitting. It doesn't take breaks, it doesn't discriminate, and it doesn't play favorites. The wealth you desire is literally streaming through the space around you right now, waiting for you to tune into its signal. Your declarations, your spoken words, your conscious affirmations, these function as precise tuning forks that align your consciousness with this divine frequency. When you speak words of abundance with faith and conviction, you're not trying to create wealth from nothing. You're adjusting your internal receiver to pick up the prosperity signal that's already broadcasting at full strength. This understanding revolutionizes how you approach every challenging moment in your financial journey. Instead of reacting to difficulties with complaints, worries, or fearful statements, you learn to respond with commands that keep you aligned with abundance frequency. When bills arrive, instead of saying, "I can't afford this," you declare, "Divine supply covers every need." When unexpected expenses arise, instead of panicking, you command, "Supernatural provision flows to me now." This transformation from reactive complaints to proactive commands represents one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your consciousness. Every complaint you voice is like tuning your radio to a static-filled station of lack and limitation. Every fear you express verbally reinforces your alignment with scarcity frequency. But every command you declare, every spiritual formula you speak, every confident declaration of divine supply acts as a precise adjustment that brings you closer to clear reception of abundance. The hidden truth behind this process is that you're always tuning into something. Your words and thoughts are constantly adjusting your frequency, either toward prosperity or toward poverty. There's no neutral position. Every conversation you have, every internal dialogue you engage in, every casual comment you make about money is either strengthening your connection to abundance or reinforcing your alignment with lack. What makes this approach so immediately practical is that you can begin implementing it right now, in this moment, regardless of your current circumstances. You don't need to wait for conditions to improve or for external situations to change. You simply need to start replacing old reactive patterns with new conscious commands that keep you tuned to the frequency of divine provision. Write in the comments, "I choose commands over complaints," if you're ready to start adjusting your frequency. This daily practice of choosing commands over complaints brings you to a crucial crossroads in your spiritual journey, a decision point that will determine the entire trajectory of your financial future. You're standing at the intersection of two completely different economic systems, and you must consciously choose which one will govern your life from this moment forward. The first system operates according to man's law, the economy of struggle, competition, and scarcity that dominates most people's thinking. In this system, money is always limited, opportunities are scarce, and you must fight for your share of a finite pie. This economy tells you to serve appearances, to accept what your bank account shows, to bow down to circumstances, and let external conditions dictate your possibilities. The second system operates according to God's law, an economy built on infinite supply, divine favor, and supernatural provision. In this spiritual economy, there's always more than enough. Opportunities are unlimited, and wealth flows through natural spiritual principles rather than human effort and manipulation. This economy invites you to serve abundance, to declare what you desire regardless of current appearances, and to let your consciousness shape your circumstances rather than the other way around. This is the kind of content I'm passionate about creating. Practical spiritual truth that transforms your relationship with money and abundance. If you want more of these deep dives into how divine law actually operates, hit that subscribe button so we can continue exploring these mysteries together. The hidden truth behind this choice is that you cannot serve both systems simultaneously. You cannot operate according to scarcity principles on Monday and abundance principles on Tuesday, expecting consistent results. You cannot pledge loyalty to limitation in your conversations while declaring prosperity in your prayers. This double-mindedness creates internal conflict that blocks the very flow of abundance you're trying to access. The transformation happens when you make a clean break from loyalty to limitation and declare a new economy in your life, one built on spirit rather than struggle, faith rather than fear, divine law rather than human limitation. This isn't just a mental decision. It's a complete restructuring of how you approach every financial situation, every money conversation, every economic challenge. This restructuring begins with understanding that your morning declarations carry extraordinary creative power. Most people wake up and immediately check their phones, diving into the world's agenda before establishing their own spiritual frequency for the day. But when you understand that your first words don't just motivate you, they actually instruct the invisible realm to rise in obedience to your spoken commands, everything changes. Your morning declarations become sacred instructions to the creative forces of the universe. When you speak abundance into your day before your feet touch the floor, you're not engaging in positive thinking or motivational self-talk. You're issuing spiritual commands that set the vibrational tone for everything that follows. You're telling the invisible realm what kind of day you're walking into and calling your supply out of hiding. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the specific words you speak in those first moments of consciousness can literally reshape your entire financial reality. Write in the comments, "I declare a new spiritual economy," if you're ready to make this fundamental choice. The specific words you choose in those sacred morning moments carry tremendous creative authority. There's one particular declaration that functions like a master key, unlocking pathways of abundance that your logical mind could never imagine or plan. When you begin each day by saying, "Unexpected channels of supply now open to me," you're doing something far more powerful than making a hopeful statement. You're actually authorizing divine mind to move on your behalf in ways that transcend your current understanding. This declaration works because it releases you from the limitation of only expecting money to come through familiar channels. Most people unconsciously restrict their supply by only believing in the income streams they can see and understand: their job, their business, their investments. But when you declare that unexpected channels are opening, you're giving permission for abundance to flow through any route the universe chooses, including paths you've never considered or couldn't have planned. The hidden mechanism behind this declaration is that it signals your readiness to receive the new, the unseen, and the miraculous. You're telling the creative forces of the universe that you're no longer limiting them to working within the boundaries of your current experience. You're opening yourself to possibilities that exist beyond your present level of awareness. This openness becomes even more powerful when you understand the fundamental truth about money itself. What you call money is not actually your source of supply. It's simply a vehicle that takes the shape of your beliefs and expectations. Money is like water that conforms to whatever container you provide through your consciousness. If your beliefs about money are small and limited, money shows up in small, limited ways. If your beliefs are expansive and abundant, money manifests in expansive, abundant forms. This revelation completely transforms how you relate to financial manifestation because you realize that the speed and magnitude of your wealth creation depends entirely on the clarity of your spiritual commands. When you speak with absolute certainty, when your declarations are backed by unwavering faith, when your consciousness is crystal clear about what you're calling forth, the physical form of wealth arrives with remarkable speed. The beauty of this process is that you're no longer at the mercy of economic conditions, job markets, or external circumstances. You're working directly with the source of all supply, issuing clear instructions about how you want abundance to manifest in your life. Your morning declarations become the blueprint that divine intelligence uses to arrange people, circumstances, and opportunities in your favor. The transformation accelerates when you realize that every unexpected check, every surprise opportunity, every unanticipated blessing you've ever received was actually a response to some form of spiritual declaration you made, whether conscious or unconscious. Now you're simply learning to make these declarations deliberately and with full awareness of their creative power. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to speak with this kind of spiritual authority will unlock levels of abundance you may have thought were impossible. Write in the comments, unexpected channels are opening if you feel this energy shifting for you. This spiritual authority becomes absolutely crucial when your physical circumstances seem to contradict everything you're declaring. There will be moments in your transformation journey when your bank account shows numbers that feel overwhelming, when bills arrive that seem impossible to pay, when your financial reality appears to mock every declaration you've made. These are the moments that separate those who truly understand spiritual law from those who merely hope it works. When your physical eyes see empty accounts or insufficient funds, you're standing at a crossroads that will determine whether you continue moving toward abundance or slip back into the old patterns of fear and limitation. The temptation is to bow to these appearances, to let what you see in the physical realm override what you know in the spiritual realm. But this is precisely when your declarations become most powerful and most necessary. Instead of accepting what appears to be true, you learn to deny the appearance and speak over it with absolute authority. When that bank statement shows a low number, instead of spiraling into panic or resignation, you declare, "Though this number looks low, I know my storehouse is full." You're not denying the physical reality. You're refusing to let it have the final word about your financial future. This practice becomes transformative when you understand that you're actually speaking to the appearances until they change, not waiting for them to change before you speak. You're commanding the substance behind the form to manifest in ways that align with your declarations rather than your current circumstances. Let me share a powerful example that demonstrates exactly how this works in real life. A woman came to understand these principles when she was significantly behind on her rent, facing eviction with seemingly no way to generate the money she needed. Her natural impulse was to panic, to let fear take over, to accept that she might lose her home. But instead, she made a decision that changed everything. She refused to entertain panic and began declaring, "Divine supply is never late." Every morning and every night. She didn't just say it once or twice. She made it her consistent practice, her daily covenant with abundance. She spoke this declaration even when her circumstances screamed the opposite, even when logic told her it was impossible, even when fear tried to convince her she was being unrealistic. 2 days before her rent was due, something remarkable happened. A relative she hadn't spoken to in years called her completely out of the blue and sent her money for no apparent reason. The relative later said they just felt compelled to help, couldn't explain why, but knew they needed to send that exact amount immediately. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the mechanics behind this kind of manifestation will show you exactly how to apply these same principles to your own financial challenges. Write in the comments, "Divine supply is never late," if this testimony resonates with your spirit. The mechanics behind this kind of miraculous provision work through a systematic approach to consciousness transformation that most people never discover. When that woman declared, "Divine supply is never late," with unwavering consistency, she was actually engaging in a precise spiritual technology that rebuilds your mental foundation from the ground up. This transformation happens through what I call daily architecture, the practice of using specific declarations to literally construct a new framework for how abundance flows into your life. Just as a building requires a strong foundation and structural framework to support its walls and roof, your financial reality requires a conscious framework of declarations to support the manifestation of wealth. The process begins with 3 foundational declarations that work sequentially to establish this new architecture in your consciousness. On the first day, you declare, "Every bill is paid by divine mind," speaking this not as a hopeful wish, but as a spiritual command that instructs infinite intelligence to handle your financial obligations. You're not asking permission or begging for help. You're stating a divine fact and commanding the invisible realm to make it visible. The second day builds upon this foundation with, "I welcome unexpected wealth," which opens your consciousness to receive abundance from sources your logical mind hasn't anticipated. This declaration breaks down the walls of limitation that confine most people to expecting money only through familiar channels. You're authorizing the universe to surprise you with wealth that flows through unconventional pathways. Take a moment to like this video if these abundance principles resonated with something deep in your consciousness. Your like tells me we're building something meaningful here, and it helps these teachings find their way to others who are ready for this level of transformation. The third day establishes your spiritual authority with, "Money is not my master. I am money's commander." This declaration completely reverses the victim mentality that keeps most people enslaved to financial circumstances. Instead of being controlled by money's presence or absence, you step into your role as the director of financial energy in your life. These aren't just positive affirmations designed to make you feel better. They're strategic reprogramming tools that systematically demolish old patterns of financial fear and construct new patterns of abundance expectation. Each declaration serves as a specific instruction to your subconscious mind, training it to expect wealth as natural, normal, and inevitable rather than rare, difficult, or requiring special circumstances. The hidden truth behind this daily architecture is that your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between repeated declarations and actual experiences. When you consistently speak these commands with conviction, your subconscious begins operating as if abundance is already your reality. It starts filtering opportunities, attracting circumstances, and magnetizing people that align with your new financial identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding how to extend this architectural foundation into your evening hours will complete the 24-hour cycle of abundance programming. Write in the comments, "I am money's commander," if you're ready to step into this authority. This architectural foundation reaches its full power when you understand that your evening hours offer an even more potent opportunity for consciousness transformation than your mornings. The moments before sleep represent sacred programming time when your conscious mind's defenses are naturally lowered, creating a direct pathway to the subconscious where all real change originates. What most people don't realize is that whatever you impress upon your mind in those final minutes before sleep goes directly into the subconscious realm, where it multiplies and amplifies throughout the night. Your subconscious doesn't rest when your body sleeps. It becomes incredibly active, processing, creating, and attracting based on the last thoughts and declarations you fed it before losing consciousness. This makes your evening ritual absolutely critical to your financial transformation. If you end your day rehearsing worries about money, replaying fearful conversations about bills, or reviewing everything that went wrong financially, you're essentially programming your subconscious to create more of those same experiences while you sleep. You're unknowingly instructing the most powerful creative force in your mind to multiply limitation and attract more circumstances that match your fears. But when you consciously guard this sacred gate, when you refuse to let fear and doubt have the final word of your day, you transform those 8 hours of sleep into 8 hours of abundance programming. Your subconscious becomes your wealth creation partner, working tirelessly through the night to arrange circumstances, attract opportunities, and magnetize resources that align with your conscious declarations. The hidden truth behind nighttime wealth installation is that you must end every evening with deliberate declarations about what you choose to multiply in your life. As you lay your head down, as your conscious mind begins to fade, you speak only what you want to see amplified in your experience. You don't review what's missing, you don't relive what went wrong, you don't rehearse tomorrow's challenges. Instead, you plant seeds of abundance in the fertile soil of your sleeping consciousness. This process works because your subconscious operates like an incredibly sophisticated manufacturing plant that never stops production. Whatever raw materials you provide through your thoughts and declarations become the blueprint for what it creates while you rest. If you provide materials of fear and lack, it manufactures more fearful and lacking experiences. If you provide materials of abundance and faith, it produces abundant and prosperous realities. The transformation happens when you realize that those 8 hours of sleep can either work for you or against you, depending entirely on what you consciously choose to install before drifting off. You're not just resting your body, you're programming your future reality through the most powerful creative mechanism in your being. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the specific declarations you make during these sacred evening moments can literally reshape your entire financial destiny. Write in the comments, "My subconscious creates abundance while I sleep," if this revelation is opening new possibilities for you. The specific declarations you make during these sacred evening moments begin with a crucial cleansing process that most people completely overlook. Before you can effectively program abundance into your subconscious, you must first clear away the residue of limitation that accumulated throughout your day. This means consciously forgiving every appearance of delay, every moment of financial anxiety, every thought of insufficiency that crossed your mind. This forgiveness process isn't about denying that challenges occurred or pretending everything was perfect. It's about refusing to let the day's appearances cast long shadows into your dreams and future manifestations. When you begin each night by declaring, "Every appearance of lack is a lie. I forgive it and replace it," you're performing spiritual housekeeping that prevents old patterns from contaminating your new abundance programming. The hidden truth behind this forgiveness practice is that your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what happened and what you choose to remember about what happened. By consciously forgiving and releasing the day's limiting experiences, you're literally editing the raw material that your subconscious will use to create tomorrow's reality. You're choosing which memories and impressions get to influence your overnight programming. Once this cleansing is complete, you begin a systematic 4-night progression that rebuilds your financial consciousness from the foundation up. The first night you declare, "I now receive lavish abundance," speaking this not as a distant goal, but as a present reality that's unfolding while you sleep. This declaration breaks the addiction to receiving just enough or barely enough, training your consciousness to expect and accept overflow rather than survival. The second night deepens this foundation with, "The doors of wealth are always open to me," which dissolves the illusion of limited opportunity and closed pathways. You're programming your subconscious to recognize that abundance operates outside the constraints of human schedules and conventional timing. This declaration ensures you remain receptive to wealth regardless of external economic conditions. The third night accelerates the process with, "What I need comes quickly and freely," challenging the deeply embedded belief that good things must come slowly or require struggle. You're installing new expectations about the speed and ease of divine provision, training your mind to anticipate rapid manifestation rather than delayed gratification. The fourth night establishes your permanent identity with, "I am aligned with the law of increase," which locks in your new relationship with abundance as a natural, ongoing rhythm rather than a temporary exception. This declaration creates a state of consciousness where expansion becomes inevitable and contraction becomes impossible. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding why this systematic progression works so powerfully will give you the confidence to commit fully to this transformation process. Write in the comments, "I forgive and replace all limitation," if you're ready to begin this evening practice. This systematic progression works so powerfully because it addresses one of the most fundamental misconceptions that keeps spiritual people trapped in financial limitation. Many believe there's something virtuous about scraping by, something noble about financial struggle, something spiritually pure about having just enough to survive. But this belief system completely misunderstands the nature of divine abundance and actually contradicts the very essence of spiritual law. The truth is that spirit doesn't delight in your struggle. The universe doesn't celebrate your financial stress or find pleasure in watching you sacrifice your dreams for survival. There's no virtue in limitation, no holiness in insufficiency, no spiritual merit in barely making ends meet. These beliefs are cultural programming disguised as spiritual wisdom, and they create massive internal resistance to receiving the lavish abundance that's actually your spiritual birthright. The universe holds more wealth than you could spend in 1,000 lifetimes, and all of this abundance responds not to your worthiness, not to your effort, not to your sacrifice, but simply to your vibration. When you understand that abundance is actually the natural state of divine creation, when you realize that limitation is the aberration rather than the norm, everything about your relationship with money transforms. This transformation becomes possible when you address the hidden sabotage mechanism that operates beneath the surface of most people's abundance efforts. Here's what happens to the majority of people who try to manifest wealth. They speak declarations of abundance, while their subconscious mind remains rooted in struggle beliefs. They declare prosperity with their mouths, while their deeper programming expects lack and prepares for rejection. This internal contradiction creates what I call spiritual schizophrenia, a condition where your conscious mind and subconscious mind are working against each other instead of in harmony. Your conscious declarations say, "I receive wealth," but your subconscious beliefs whisper, "This probably won't work for me." Your words claim abundance, but your deeper expectations prepare for disappointment. The hidden truth behind lasting transformation is that what you speak with your mouth must be believed by your subconscious mind, or the creative mechanism simply won't engage. Your subconscious doesn't respond to wishful thinking or hopeful affirmations. It responds to beliefs that feel real, authentic, and congruent with your deeper sense of identity and possibility. This is why so many people experience temporary excitement about prosperity principles, but then watch their circumstances remain unchanged. They're trying to override years of limitation programming with surface-level declarations, not realizing that real change requires going deeper into the belief structures that actually govern their financial reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to bridge this gap between conscious declarations and subconscious beliefs will unlock the real power behind these abundance principles. Write in the comments, "I align my beliefs with my declarations," if you recognize this internal contradiction in your own experience. The bridge between conscious declarations and subconscious beliefs begins with recognizing that most of your limiting financial programming didn't originate from your own experience. It was inherited from the collective consciousness around you. From the moment you could understand language, you were absorbing money myths that function like cultural spells, creating invisible barriers between you and the abundance that's naturally yours. These aren't harmless sayings or innocent observations about money. They're deeply embedded programs that shape how your subconscious mind interprets financial reality. When you heard, "Money doesn't grow on trees," hundreds of times throughout childhood, your subconscious wasn't just learning about money, it was learning that abundance is unnatural, that wealth must be fought for, that ease and flow are impossible when it comes to finances. Similarly, phrases like "good people struggle" or "money is the root of all evil" weren't just teaching you about morality, they were installing internal conflicts that would later sabotage your ability to receive abundance without guilt or fear. These cultural spells create what I call prosperity guilt, where part of you wants wealth while another part believes that wanting it makes you somehow less spiritual or good. The profound truth that changes everything is that you don't inherit your financial future from your bloodline. You inherit it from your belief line. Your parents' struggles, your family's patterns, your cultural background's limitations around money have no power over your financial destiny unless you continue carrying their beliefs forward. The moment you recognize these inherited programs as choices rather than facts, you can begin replacing them with spiritual truth. This replacement process requires specific, intentional substitutions that gradually rewire your subconscious programming. When you catch yourself thinking, money doesn't grow on trees, you immediately substitute it with, money grows from spiritual law rooted in me. This isn't just positive thinking. You're literally installing new software in your consciousness that recognizes abundance as natural rather than scarce. When the phrase, "I can't afford that," automatically rises in your mind, you consciously replace it with, "If this is mine by divine right, the supply appears." This substitution breaks the automatic assumption of limitation and opens your consciousness to possibilities your logical mind hasn't considered. You're training your subconscious to look for solutions rather than accept restrictions. The transformation happens through repetition and consistency. Each time you make these conscious substitutions, you're weakening the old neural pathways and strengthening new ones. You're literally rebuilding the foundational beliefs that govern your financial reality, one thought at a time, one phrase at a time, one moment of conscious choice at a time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's one particular belief system that's so pervasive, it affects almost everyone, yet so subtle that most people never recognize how it's limiting their abundance. Write in the comments, "I break all money spells now," if you're ready to release these inherited limitations. This particular belief system that sabotages so many spiritual people is the hidden shame around actually wanting and receiving wealth. It's disguised as humility, packaged as spiritual purity, and celebrated as noble sacrifice. But it's actually one of the most destructive programs limiting your financial transformation. Somewhere along your spiritual journey, you absorbed the toxic idea that there's virtue in lack, holiness in insufficiency, and spiritual merit in financial struggle. This belief creates an impossible internal conflict where part of you desperately wants abundance, while another part judges that desire as somehow selfish or unspiritual. You find yourself apologizing for wanting more, feeling guilty about prosperity desires, or minimizing your financial goals to appear more humble or enlightened. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. You cannot serve the world fully while living in constant fear of bills. And you cannot pour abundantly into others when your own cup remains chronically empty. The universe actually needs you wealthy, prosperous, and financially free so you can become a greater blessing to others. Your abundance isn't about greed. It's about expanding your capacity to give, to serve, to impact the world in ways that poverty consciousness makes impossible. When you're struggling financially, most of your mental and emotional energy gets consumed by survival concerns, leaving little space for the creative contributions you're meant to make. This understanding liberates you from the shame and allows you to pursue abundance as a spiritual responsibility rather than a selfish desire. But even with this clarity, you'll still face moments when limiting thoughts arise, when old patterns try to reassert themselves, when fear attempts to override your new programming. This is where having a practical tool becomes absolutely crucial for maintaining your transformation momentum. The most effective technique I've discovered for these moments is what I call the CRC formula, a 3-step process that you can use instantly whenever limitation thoughts surface. The moment you catch yourself thinking, "I can't afford this," or "there's not enough money," or any variation of scarcity thinking, you immediately apply this formula to override the old pattern before it gains momentum. First, you cancel the limiting thought by speaking directly to it. "I cancel that thought." You don't ignore it or pretend it didn't happen. You acknowledge it and then deliberately interrupt its influence over your consciousness. Second, you replace it immediately with a higher truth. "I walk in divine abundance," or "My supply is unlimited," or whatever affirmation feels most powerful in that moment. Third, you command the atmosphere around you. "I command prosperity to manifest now," sealing your new declaration with spiritual authority. This formula works because it breaks the automatic cycle of limitation thinking before it can create momentum. Instead of letting scarcity thoughts spiral into emotional reactions and fearful behaviors, you catch them early and redirect your consciousness back toward abundance alignment. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the science behind why this redirection works so effectively will give you even more confidence in applying it consistently. Write in the comments, "I release all shame about wanting wealth," if this permission to prosper is resonating with your heart. The science behind why this redirection works so effectively lies in understanding your mind as a fertile field that operates according to precise agricultural principles. Just as a farmer knows that soil doesn't discriminate between seeds, it will grow whatever is planted with equal enthusiasm. Your consciousness doesn't judge whether your thoughts are beneficial or harmful. It simply grows whatever you consistently plant through your mental attention and emotional energy. This field of consciousness operates with remarkable efficiency. When you plant seeds of doubt, worry, and scarcity thinking, your mind begins growing circumstances that match those vibrations. You literally reap delay, struggle, and limitation because that's what you've been sowing through your dominant thought patterns. But when you consciously plant seeds of truth, abundance, and divine supply, your mind grows demonstrations that align with those higher frequencies. The profound realization here is that you're always farming your consciousness, whether you're aware of it or not. Every conversation you have, every worry you entertain, every fearful thought you allow to take root is either planting wheat or weeds in the field of your experience. There's no neutral ground, no inactive time when your thoughts don't matter. Your mental field is constantly producing a harvest, based on the quality of seeds you've been planting. This understanding transforms the CRC formula from a simple technique into what I call spiritual neurology, the conscious practice of rewiring your brain's neural pathways through rhythm and repetition. When you consistently apply "I cancel lack, I replace with divine wealth, I command atmosphere to yield supply," you're not just managing individual thoughts, you're actually creating new neural highways in your brain that make abundance, thinking automatic rather than effortful. Neuroscience confirms that repetitive thoughts and behaviors literally reshape the physical structure of your brain. Each time you consciously interrupt a limiting thought and replace it with abundance thinking, you're weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening a new one. But this transformation requires consistency, rhythm, and persistent application over time. The hidden truth behind lasting change is that spiritual transformation happens through what I call neural agriculture, the patient, consistent practice of planting truth until it becomes your brain's default programming. You can't plant abundance seeds for a few days and expect a permanent harvest. You must maintain this practice until the new patterns become stronger than the old ones, until abundance thinking feels more natural than scarcity thinking. This is why many people experience temporary excitement about prosperity principles, but then watch their enthusiasm fade when immediate results don't appear. They're treating consciousness transformation like microwave cooking when it actually works more like traditional farming, requiring seasons of consistent planting, tending, and patience before the full harvest manifests. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding the timeline of this neural transformation will help you maintain consistency during the crucial early phases of your abundance journey. Write in the comments, "I am consciously farming abundance," if you're ready to commit to this consistent practice. Understanding the timeline of neural transformation reveals that lasting change happens through what I call saturation programming, a process where you replace old patterns entirely through daily, hourly, moment-by-moment dedication to truth. This isn't about setting aside 20 minutes for affirmations and then forgetting about abundance consciousness for the rest of the day. This is about creating such consistent exposure to divine increased thinking that limiting beliefs literally can't find space to breathe in your consciousness. The transformation accelerates when you understand that your old patterns of lack and limitation are like weeds that survive through attention and emotional feeding. Every time you worry about money, every time you focus on what's missing, every time you rehearse financial fears, you're providing oxygen to these limiting programs. But when you saturate your mind so thoroughly with abundance thinking that there's no mental space left for scarcity consciousness, those old patterns begin to wither from neglect. This saturation process creates a fascinating shift in your relationship with manifestation itself. Instead of begging the universe for abundance, instead of wondering how or when wealth will arrive, instead of hoping and wishing and trying to convince yourself that prosperity is possible, you begin operating from pure expectation. You're no longer asking, "Will this work for me?" You're simply expecting the wealth you've declared because expectation has become your natural state. This expectation functions like a precise mold that shapes your manifestation experiences. Just as hot metal poured into a mold takes the exact shape of its container, divine substance flows into the shape of your expectations. When you expect small amounts, you receive small amounts. When you expect struggle, you receive struggle. But when you expect lavish, abundance flowing through multiple channels, that expectation becomes the blueprint for how wealth manifests in your life. The hidden truth behind this transformation is that you literally become an open vessel for divine supply, rather than a closed container trying to attract it from outside yourself. Your consciousness expands to accommodate greater and greater levels of abundance because you're no longer limiting the flow through small expectations or fearful restrictions. This shift from hoping to expecting represents one of the most profound changes in spiritual consciousness. Hope implies uncertainty. You hope something good might happen. Expectation implies certainty. You expect something good will happen. When you consistently saturate your mind with abundance truth until expectation becomes your default setting, you're operating from an entirely different vibrational frequency than most people ever experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to maintain this expectation consciousness when external circumstances seem to contradict your declarations will determine whether you sustain your transformation or slip back into old patterns. Write in the comments, "I expect abundance as my natural state." If this shift from hoping to expecting is happening within you, maintaining this expectation consciousness when circumstances challenge your declarations requires understanding the most fundamental truth about your relationship with abundance. You're not trying to convince the universe that you deserve wealth. You're simply recognizing and claiming the divine identity that makes abundance your spiritual birthright. When you declare, "I deserve abundance because I am divine idea made manifest," you're not engaging in positive self-talk or attempting to boost your self-esteem. You're stating a metaphysical fact that breaks through shame and resistance at their very roots. This declaration dissolves the guilt of receiving that keeps so many people trapped in limitation cycles. When you truly understand that you are divine consciousness expressing itself in physical form, when you grasp that your very existence is proof of infinite creativity and unlimited supply, the shame around wanting and receiving wealth simply evaporates. You're not being greedy or selfish. You're fulfilling your divine design. The profound shift happens when you realize you're not trying to manipulate spiritual law to get what you want. You're actually fulfilling spiritual law by allowing abundance to flow through you as naturally as breath flows through your lungs. Limitation was never your true nature. It was simply a temporary forgetting of who you really are and how divine supply operates through conscious beings. This understanding becomes absolutely crucial when fear tries to derail your transformation journey. The difference between people who sustain their abundance consciousness and those who slip back into old patterns lies in how they handle fear when it arises. Most people react to financial fear by immediately spiraling into worry, panic, or defensive behaviors. But when you understand your divine identity, you learn to respond to fear with conscious commands rather than unconscious reactions. When fear about money surfaces in your consciousness, instead of allowing it to trigger the old patterns of anxiety and doubt, you immediately respond with spiritual authority. I walk in supernatural provision. You're not denying that the fear appeared. You're refusing to let it have dominion over your consciousness. When feelings of being overlooked or forgotten arise, instead of accepting that interpretation, you respond with, "I am divinely remembered and richly rewarded." This distinction between reacting and responding represents the difference between being a victim of your circumstances and being a master of your consciousness. Reactions are automatic, emotional, and usually reinforce the very patterns you're trying to change. Responses are conscious, deliberate, and aligned with the truth you're establishing in your life. The transformation happens when you realize that every moment of fear, every challenging circumstance, every appearance of lack is actually an opportunity to strengthen your spiritual muscles by choosing response over reaction. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how to make this choice consistently, especially during intense pressure situations, will determine whether you build lasting abundance consciousness or continue cycling through temporary improvements. Write in the comments, "I am divine idea made manifest," if this truth is anchoring itself in your consciousness. Making this choice consistently during intense pressure situations brings you to what I call the line in the sand moment, the critical decision point where inspiration either transforms into instruction or fades into another forgotten truth. You've absorbed these principles, you've felt their power, you've experienced moments of clarity where abundance consciousness felt real and accessible. But now comes the moment that separates those who transform their financial reality from those who simply collect spiritual information. This isn't a casual decision you can make half-heartedly. This isn't something you can try for a few days and then abandon when immediate results don't appear. This requires what I call covenant consciousness, a sacred commitment to walk in these principles with unwavering consistency regardless of external circumstances, emotional fluctuations, or the opinions of others who don't understand spiritual law. The transformation happens through what I call training with fire, a 14-day intensive that establishes these principles so deeply in your consciousness that they become your new default operating system. This isn't just another self-improvement experiment. This is a complete reconstruction of your financial identity, and it requires the kind of dedication that builds lasting neural pathways rather than temporary emotional highs. For 14 consecutive days, you will establish a rhythm that programs abundance into every aspect of your consciousness. Each morning, before your feet touch the floor, before you check your phone, before you engage with the world's agenda, you will declare, "My channels are open," authorizing divine intelligence to move on your behalf through unexpected pathways. At midday, whether you're at work, at home, or anywhere in between, you will speak, "Money follows me," reinforcing your magnetic relationship with abundance. Each night, as you prepare for sleep, you will seal your day with "All is provided," programming your subconscious to work with divine supply while you rest. But here's what makes this training so powerful. You won't just be speaking these words. You'll be walking as someone who is already funded, already supported, already abundant. You'll move through these 14 days, not as someone hoping for change, but as someone commanding their reality. You'll make decisions from abundance consciousness, speak from prosperity awareness, and carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their supply is guaranteed. This requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your financial circumstances during this training period. You cannot treat this as a hopeful experiment while still entertaining doubt and fear. You cannot declare abundance in your morning ritual and then spend your afternoon worrying about bills. You must become ruthlessly consistent in maintaining this new frequency. Write in the comments, "I commit to the 14-day covenant," if you're ready to make this sacred decision and transform your financial reality. During these 14 days, your old identity will fight for survival with everything it has. Your logical mind will present compelling arguments about why this can't work. Your emotions will fluctuate between excitement and doubt. People around you might question your new approach to money. Your circumstances might even seem to get more challenging before they improve, as if the universe is testing your commitment to this new way of being. But here's what you must understand. This resistance isn't evidence that the principles don't work. It's evidence that they're working so powerfully that your old programming is scrambling to maintain its influence over your consciousness. Every moment of doubt, every challenging circumstance, every fearful thought is simply the old you making one last attempt to pull you back into familiar limitation. Your commitment to these 14 days isn't just about financial transformation. It's about proving to yourself that you have the spiritual authority to override any programming that doesn't serve your highest good. It's about discovering that you really are the master of your consciousness, the director of your reality, the living expression of infinite abundance. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, if these words have ignited something deep within your spirit, then you're clearly ready for this level of transformation. You wouldn't have been drawn to this message if you weren't prepared to step into the abundant life that's waiting for you. This is exactly the kind of deep, practical spiritual content I share here regularly, because I believe you deserve to understand how these divine laws actually work in your daily life. If this resonates with you, I'd love to have you subscribe so we can continue this abundance journey together. And if you made it all the way to the end, drop a comment that says, "I'm ready for my covenant," so I know you're serious about this transformation. Your engagement means everything, because it tells me these teachings are landing where they need to land. Hit that like button if you felt the connection we've built together through these truths. It helps more people discover this life-changing content. There's a video right here that takes this abundance training even deeper, showing you exactly how to maintain this consciousness when life gets intense. Click and continue with me over there, because your transformation is just getting started.